Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're gonna do something that is very requested by my viewers on my Twitch stream. Even though I'm just an intermediate chess player at best, my viewers often ask me for advice when they're just beginning in chess. People often have a hard time reaching 1000 elo and they plateau and they don't know what they should do in those early stages of learning chess. So today I'm just gonna show you some basics called the opening principles. This is very important for every chess player to know. The sooner you adopt these principles, the faster you will get to 1000 elo or more. These are very simple but very important things to learn. So let's just get into the opening principles and some extra tips on the side. There are 3 golden rules of chess, or 3 opening principles: center control, king safety, and piece development. We're gonna dig into all of those, and the first one we're gonna cover is center control. When you're playing your first move in any game, whether you're white or black, you usually want to make a move that controls the center. These are the 4 center squares: d4, e4, e5, and d5. For example, making a move like this would probably not be the best way to start a game because it doesn't control any of the center squares. This is why some of the most common moves in openings are e4, d4, and then black will counter with d5 or e5. So this is the first way that you will try to take control over the center. If your opponent allows this, and for example, they play b6 trying to fianchetto this bishop, you simply play d4 and take even more center control. Now white fully controls the center for now. Your opponent is not challenging it, they are allowing it, so you're gonna take that opportunity. Of course, this is the very basic first move of the game. The problem of center control is the biggest battle between the 2 opposing sides in chess. The whole game will revolve around the center usually. It's not an exclusive rule that always applies like any other rule of chess. You always need to check the position to check if these rules apply, of course. The center power struggle is real. It's all about the center. When you're in a game and you're not sure what kind of move to make, think, can I control the center even more? Can I challenge my opponent's control over the center? For example, if you play e4, your opponent plays e5, now they have a pawn there. And let's say you had no idea what kind of move you could make next. What about challenging your opponent's control over the center? You make a move such as knight f3, attacking this pawn immediately. But now we're actually getting to the second opening principle, which is developing your pieces. Pawns are obviously pieces, but when we talk about development, we are generally talking about the minor pieces, knights and bishops, the ones I circled with the green circle, and the major pieces, which are the queen and the rooks. These are the pieces we talk about when it comes to development. Some things to remember when you're thinking about your opening and how you want to develop your pieces is you generally want to develop them towards the center. You never want to move the same piece twice because this is a waste of a tempo. A tempo in chess is basically a turn, your turn, a single move that you make. If you lose a tempo by moving the same piece, such as a knight, twice, you are allowing your opponent to have some advantage in development, because in the time that you moved your piece twice, they developed another minor piece, and they could take more center control, be ahead of you basically. Like I explained, in this position, we want to develop our minor pieces. Let's say we got some pawns out, we got some center control, so now we want to develop actual minor pieces. How do you decide which ones you want to develop? There is a rule that we generally want to develop knights before bishops. This is because knights have a pretty limited amount of squares they could go towards the center. Of course, you can take them out on the sides of the board, which is called the rim, but there's a saying that goes, the knight on the rim is dim. Since we know that there is pretty much only 2 squares for the knight, where do we want to put it? For example, if we were to put the knight here on e2, it would block this bishop's development, because this bishop also wants to develop on our next turn. In this position, it's probably best that we develop the knight towards the center squares. We are also attacking our opponent's undefended piece, so on their next turn, they they have to address that. Let's say our opponent does the same. They develop their knight towards the center, defending this attacked piece, developing their minor piece at the same time. It's pretty solid. You still want to keep developing your pieces. In this moment, there's pretty much only one piece you can develop, which is the bishop, without moving any other pieces. I'm saying just the bishop, even though technically you could develop this queen to d2, but there are multiple reasons why this is a bad idea. Firstly, there is a general principle in chess that you don't want to take your queen out too early. This means that you should develop your minor pieces first, then the rooks, and then the queen. There's a very good reason for this. The queen can become a target very fast in the opening if you take her out too quickly. You can see that taking the queen out very early is not a good idea. It's just gonna get attacked and targeted by your opponent while also allowing them to develop their pieces at the same time. They're gaining space on the board and tempi. I hate that word. Tempos. I'm going to say tempos. They're going to gain time while you're just moving your queen around. We now want to develop our next minor piece, which is our light square bishop. So we have some options, obviously. We don't want to go here because it will get taken. We have about 4 squares to decide for our bishop, and any of these could be good. But like I said, you want to think about how can I develop my pieces towards the center? In order to develop this bishop towards the center so that it's pointing towards one of the center squares is either d3 or c4. These opening principles that I'm telling you are the reason why openings look like this a lot of the time, especially for beginners in chess. These are very important things to remember, and I'm sure that if you actually apply just these 3 major principles and a lot of little side tips that I'm giving you, you will get better a lot faster. I promise you. That's how I got better. I was just a 500 when I started. Another thing that I want to mention right now is don't attack before you finish developing your pieces. Your pieces are fully developed once they have all moved from their original square. But do not attack before developing. Why not? Because first of all, you are fighting your opponent with fewer pieces. Until all of these are developed, you are now attacking them with only 1 queen and a bishop, and it probably might not go your way because they have so many pieces to defend with right now. Secondly, your opponent can gain a tempo because now they're kicking your queen and you have to move the same piece twice in the opening, which we already discussed is not a good idea. Basically, by being really aggressive, you can sometimes trick your opponent into a quick scholar's mate, but against actually solid defense where your opponent is defending well, you will fall behind in development and potentially lose the game. So first, get all your pieces on the battlefield and then you can start the attack. Let's look at an opening where all the pieces are developed. Okay, now we're looking at a pretty solid opening where all the minor pieces have been developed on both sides. Now comes the third opening principle, and a very important one as well, king safety. You want to castle as soon as you can. 1, this will protect your king. 2, it will develop the rook on whichever side you're castling. And on the next move, you will develop your queen, your rooks are now connected, and you're pretty much finished with the opening. You could say that this rook is not yet developed because it has not moved from the original square. They can only move in these directions. So until the board has a lot less pieces on it, they don't have much mobility. So you pretty much know that you want to put your rooks on these D and E files in a lot of games because that's where the center is. So later in the game, when you're trying to fight for the center, you want that extra support of your rook there. Pretty much on the next move, you can also develop the rooks, and there you have it. It's a fully finished opening, development, king safety, center control. It's all there. And now you start to try to attack. You start to develop a strategy. But basically, these are the opening principles. I really recommend playing games with these things in mind. I hope these tips will be helpful when you're in an opening and you're not sure what your next move should be. Don't just make random moves like moving a pawn. For example, if you were in this kind of position and you're not sure where to go next, don't just move random pawns. Pushing pawns is a big commitment, and you definitely want to keep that for the middle game or end game. Pushing pawns in the opening should be reserved to these 2 center pawns, or, obviously you might want to push a pawn in order to develop another piece, such as fianchetto a bishop. Pawns are defending so many squares, so whenever you move one, you're losing defense of this square by this pawn. So these are some things I would like you to remember in your openings. and let me know how it goes with these principles in mind. I remember when I was taught these things that they changed everything because I was pretty clueless before that. I was just kind of moving. Maybe intuitively, I kind of knew I should go towards the center, but it never really formed as a thought in my mind until I was taught by my coach, if I am playing a classical game and I am playing against an opening that I'm not confident about, I will just try to remember opening principles and this will guide the way. Also, this will tell you a lot about your opponent because if they're taking their queen out too early, if they're not worrying about their king's safety, they're gonna become an easy target for you. Okay guys, so these are some quick tips for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope these are helpful. This is not something that I created or came up with. Opening principles are the basics of studying chess and learning chess. So if you're a beginner who really wants to get better but you don't know where to start with these simple principles and trust me, your gameplay will be much more solid. Thank me later. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video and I hope to see you next week.